Ever planted your dream garden only to watch half of it fail mysteriously? These sneaky crop pairs are the hidden killers sabotaging your harvest. Learn the bad companions you must never plant together. Today on Planify Daily, we're revealing the crop pairs that compete for nutrients, spread diseases, attract pests, or chemically inhibit each other, so you can plant smarter and save your garden. If you want to avoid these disasters and grow thriving veggies every season, hit subscribe right now and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss our daily plant tips. Alright, let's jump straight into the countdown of the 10 worst companion crop pairs that are secretly destroying your garden. These are the combinations that veteran gardeners have learned to avoid the hard way, and I'm sharing them with you so you don't have to lose entire harvests like they did. We're starting at number 10 and working our way down to the absolute worst offender. Trust me, you'll want to check your garden layout after this. Number 10, corn and tomatoes. Now you might think these two summer favorites would get along just fine, but here's the brutal truth: they share some of the most destructive pests in the garden. The corn earworm and the tomato fruitworm, they're actually the same pest, and when you plant corn and tomatoes together, you're basically setting up an all-you-can-eat buffet for these hungry caterpillars. They'll move effortlessly between your crops, devastating both, but that's not even the worst part. Both corn and tomatoes are incredibly heavy feeders, meaning they demand massive amounts of nitrogen and other nutrients from your soil. When you plant them side by side, they're literally fighting each other for food underground. Stunted growth on both plants, smaller ears of corn, fewer tomatoes, and an overall disappointing harvest. What should you do instead? Keep these two separated by at least 20 feet if possible, or better yet, plant them in completely different garden beds. If space is tight, make sure you're heavily amending your soil with compost and fertilizer to support their nutrient demands. Your corn and tomatoes will thank you with much bigger, healthier yields. Number 9, cucumbers and aromatic herbs like sage and rosemary. This one surprises a lot of gardeners because herbs seem so harmless, right? Wrong. When you plant strongly aromatic herbs like sage or rosemary near your cucumber plants, you're setting your cukes up for failure. These powerful herbs can actually stunt cucumber growth through allelopathic compounds. That's fancy gardening talk for chemical warfare between plants. Sage and rosemary release certain oils and chemicals that cucumbers absolutely hate. Your cucumber plants will grow slower, produce fewer fruits, and never reach their full potential. These aromatic herbs can confuse or repel the beneficial pollinators that cucumbers desperately need, while potentially attracting the wrong kinds of pests to the area. And here's the kicker: cucumbers need consistent moisture and relatively rich soil, while herbs like rosemary and sage prefer drier, leaner conditions. You're setting yourself up for watering and fertilizing conflicts that will stress both plants. Plant your aromatic herbs in a completely separate herb garden or in containers far away from your cucumber patch. Your cucumbers will sprawl happily and produce abundantly when they're away from these herbal bullies. Number 8, beans and onions, garlic, or leeks. This is one of the most bad companion pairs, and it's all about chemical warfare happening right under your soil. Alliums, that's the plant family that includes onions, garlic, shallots, and leeks, release specific sulfur compounds and other chemicals from their roots that actively inhibit the germination and growth of beans and peas. If you've ever planted beans near onions and wondered why they struggled to sprout or grew slowly and weak, now you know why. The allium family is literally poisoning your legumes at the root level. Beans and peas are supposed to be these amazing nitrogen fixers that improve your soil. But when they're under chemical attack from nearby alliums, they can't do their job properly. You'll get fewer beans, smaller pods, and plants that look yellowish and unhappy. And this goes for all types of beans: bush beans, pole beans, lima beans, snap peas, snow peas. The alliums don't discriminate. They'll stunt them all. The solution is simple but non-negotiable: keep your beans and alliums on opposite sides of the garden. Plant them in different beds entirely, or at the very least, leave several feet of buffer space between them. Some gardeners successfully use beans as a buffer crop between other plants, but never ever next to onions or garlic. Your bean harvest depends on it. Number 7. Brassicas and nightshades. Let me break this down. Brassicas include broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, kale, Brussels sprouts, and other members of the cabbage family. Nightshades include tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, and potatoes. When you plant these two families together, you're creating a perfect storm of problems. First, they're both extremely heavy feeders that will compete viciously for nitrogen, phosphorus, and other nutrients. Your soil simply can't keep up with both families' demands unless you're dumping fertilizer constantly, which creates its own issues. Second, these families attract overlapping pest problems. Hornworms, aphids, and flea beetles will happily attack both families, making your garden a pest paradise. Third, and this is crucial, brassicas and nightshades have different pH and nutrient preferences that make it nearly impossible to optimize soil conditions for both. Brassicas love slightly alkaline soil and benefit from high nitrogen, while nightshades prefer slightly acidic conditions and need balanced nutrients with extra phosphorus and potassium for fruiting. When you try to satisfy both, you end up satisfying neither. Smaller broccoli heads, cabbages that won't form properly, tomatoes with blossom end rot, peppers that drop flowers. It's a gardening nightmare. The smart move: dedicate separate beds or garden areas to each family, amend the soil specifically for each group's needs. Rotate them year to year so brassicas follow nightshades and vice versa, never planting them together in the same season. This separation will dramatically improve your success with both families. Number 6. Asparagus and onions or garlic. Now, asparagus is a long-term investment in your garden. Those crowns take years to establish and can produce for decades if you treat them right. But plant onions or garlic near your asparagus bed, and you're sabotaging that entire investment. The same allelopathic chemicals that onions and garlic use against beans, they work against asparagus too. Specifically inhibiting the growth of those delicious spears you're waiting for every spring. Gardeners who plant garlic as a pest deterrent around asparagus, thinking they're being clever, often report thinner, weaker spears and reduced overall production. The chemical compounds released by allium roots interfere with asparagus root development and spear formation. Since asparagus is a perennial that you're counting on for years of harvests, any growth inhibition is a long-term loss that compounds over time. Plus, the two crops have completely incompatible growing needs. Asparagus wants deep, well-drained soil rich in organic matter, full sun, and minimal disturbance once established. Onions and garlic need different spacing, different harvest timing, and you're constantly digging around them, which disturbs asparagus roots. The recommendation from experienced asparagus growers is crystal clear: keep all alliums at least 15 to 20 feet away from your asparagus bed. Treat your asparagus patch as a no-allium zone. If you want pest protection for asparagus, use companion plants like tomatoes or parsley instead, never onions or garlic. Your asparagus will reward you with thicker, more abundant spears for many years. Next up at number 5, potatoes and tomatoes or other nightshades. Potatoes and tomatoes are both nightshades, which means they're susceptible to the exact same devastating diseases, particularly early blight and late blight. Late blight is the disease that caused the Irish potato famine, and it can wipe out both potatoes and tomatoes in days under the right conditions. When you plant these two together, one infected plant becomes a launching pad for disease to spread instantly to the other crop. You'll lose both your potato harvest and your tomato harvest in one fell swoop, but disease isn't the only problem. These crops also share pests like Colorado potato beetles, aphids, and hornworms. When pests attack one crop, they immediately have access to the other, multiplying your pest pressure exponentially. The beetles will breed faster, the hornworms will grow larger, and you'll be fighting a losing battle. On top of that, both crops are heavy feeders that compete for the same nutrients, especially potassium, which both need in large quantities. And here's something many gardeners don't realize: tomato roots can actually excrete compounds that inhibit potato tuber formation, reducing your potato yield even if disease doesn't strike. The only acceptable answer here is complete separation. Plant potatoes and tomatoes in different areas of your garden, ideally separated by other crops. Never follow potatoes with tomatoes or vice versa in crop rotation. Wait at least 3 years before planting nightshades in the same soil. This separation is non-negotiable if you want healthy harvests of both crops. Number 4. Fennel and most vegetables, especially tomatoes, beans, and peppers. Fennel is beautiful, it's delicious, it's useful in the kitchen, and it's one of the most allelopathic antisocial plants you can grow in a vegetable garden. Fennel releases chemical compounds from its roots that actively suppress the growth of almost everything around it. It's like fennel wants the whole garden to itself. When you plant fennel near tomatoes, your tomatoes will produce fewer fruits and the plants will grow stunted and weak. Plant it near beans and your beans will struggle to germinate and produce poorly. Peppers near fennel will drop flowers and produce tiny, disappointing fruits. Even herbs struggle near fennel. Basically, fennel is the garden bully that beats up everyone else on the playground. Experienced gardeners will tell you that fennel shouldn't just be separated from certain plants. It should be isolated from your entire vegetable garden. The chemicals fennel releases can travel through the soil and affect plants several feet away. Some gardeners report problems with fennel affecting plants up to 10 feet away in some cases. And it's not just vegetables, fennel even inhibits the growth of many flowers and herbs. Dill, coriander, and tomatoes are particularly sensitive. The only safe way to grow fennel is to give it its own dedicated bed far away from your main vegetable garden, or grow it in large containers that contain its root system. If you love fennel and you love a productive vegetable garden, you have to choose separate spaces for each. There's no compromise here, fennel plays well with almost nothing. Number 3. Peppers and brassicas from the cabbage family. This combination creates intense competition that stresses both crops and leads to disappointing harvests across the board. Both peppers and brassicas are what we call heavy feeders. They demand a lot of nutrients from your soil, particularly nitrogen. When you plant them together, they're basically arm wrestling underground for every bit of fertility available. The brassicas, with their extensive shallow root systems, often win this battle, leaving your pepper plants nutrient-starved. Peppers that don't get enough nutrients will drop their flowers before fruiting, produce tiny peppers, or grow slowly and never reach full size. Your broccoli and cabbage might do slightly better, but they'll also suffer from the competition, forming smaller heads than they would if given space. But nutrient competition isn't the only issue. These plant families have different soil pH preferences and different watering needs. Peppers like it warm and slightly dry between waterings. Brassicas prefer cooler conditions and consistent moisture. You'll end up compromising on both, creating suboptimal conditions that stress both crops and make them more susceptible to pests and diseases. Additionally, brassicas can cast shade on pepper plants if they're too close, and peppers absolutely need full sun to produce well. That shade stunts pepper growth even further. And here's the final nail in the coffin. Some research suggests that chemicals released by brassica roots can actually inhibit pepper growth directly, though this is still being studied. The practical takeaway: keep your peppers far away from your cabbage, broccoli, kale, and other brassicas. Plant them in different beds, give them different care regimens, and watch both crops thrive instead of struggle. Number 2. Carrots and dill. Now, this one confuses gardeners because you'll sometimes see dill recommended as a companion plant for carrots. But here's the truth that experienced carrot growers know: dill and carrots do not mix well, especially as they mature. Early in the season, young dill might provide some pest confusion that helps protect baby carrots. But as dill grows larger and matures, it becomes a serious problem for your carrot crop. First, dill is known to attract carrot rust flies, one of the most damaging pests for carrots. These flies lay eggs near carrot roots, and the resulting larvae tunnel into your carrots, creating brown, rotted trails that make them inedible. By planting dill nearby, you're essentially ringing the dinner bell for carrot rust flies. Second, mature dill plants have surprisingly aggressive root systems that compete with carrots for space and nutrients. Carrots need loose, fine soil to develop those long, straight roots we all want. Dill roots disrupt that soil structure and steal nutrients, leading to stunted, forked, or twisted carrots. Third, if you let dill go to seed, which many gardeners do because dill flowers are beautiful and the seeds are useful, those seeds will self-sow everywhere, including right into your carrot bed. The following year, you'll have volunteer dill plants sprouting among your carrots, creating an even bigger competition and pest attraction problem. Some old-time gardeners also believe that mature dill can chemically inhibit carrot growth, though this is less scientifically documented than the pest and competition issues. If you love growing both crops, plant them in completely separate areas. Keep dill with your herbs or in a cutting garden far from root vegetables. Your carrots will reward you with straight, unblemished roots perfect for fresh eating or storage. And here we are at number 1, the absolute worst companion planting mistake you can make: beans or peas with alliums, onions, garlic, leeks, or shallots. Yes, we mentioned beans and alliums earlier, but this pairing is so destructive and such a common mistake that it deserves the top spot on this countdown. This is the bad companion pair that sabotages more gardens than any other. Here, why this is so devastating. Legumes, beans, and peas are amazing plants that can pull nitrogen from the air and fix it in the soil through a symbiotic relationship with special bacteria called rhizobia. This is one of nature's most beautiful processes, and it's why gardeners love growing legumes. They actually improve your soil. But when you plant alliums nearby, the sulfur compounds and other chemicals that onions, garlic, and their relatives release from their roots actively poison the rhizobia bacteria. Without these bacteria, your beans and peas can't fix nitrogen. They become just another nutrient-hungry crop instead of the soil-improving wonder they're supposed to be. But it gets worse. The allium chemicals don't just stop nitrogen fixation, they directly inhibit seed germination and root growth in legumes. If you plant bean seeds near onions, you'll get spotty, poor germination. The seeds that do sprout will grow slowly, the plants will look pale and weak, and your harvest will be a fraction of what it should be. This affects all legumes: green beans, snap peas, snow peas, lima beans, fava beans, pole beans, bush beans, every single type. And gardeners make this mistake constantly because onions and beans seem like they should work together. They're both common vegetables, they mature at different times, it seems efficient to interplant them. But that efficiency comes at a massive cost to your harvest. The research on this is clear, and the anecdotal evidence from generations of gardeners is overwhelming. Beans and alliums are mortal enemies. The only solution is strict separation. Plant your bean rows on one side of the garden and your onion patch on the complete opposite side. Leave as much space as possible between them. Never use onions or garlic as border plants around bean beds. This is the one companion planting rule you cannot break if you want productive legumes. Alright, we've covered the 10 worst crop pairs that will sabotage your garden if you plant them together. From corn and tomatoes sharing pests to cucumbers stunted by aromatic herbs, beans poisoned by alliums, brassicas, and nightshades competing for everything. Asparagus inhibited by garlic, potatoes, and tomatoes spreading deadly diseases, fennel's chemical warfare against everything. Peppers and brassicas fighting for nutrients, carrots and dill attracting pests, and that number 1 killer combination of beans and alliums. These aren't just theories, these are proven bad companions that will cost you yields, stress your plants, and waste your time and garden space. Now here's what I want you to do. Go check your garden layout right now, whether it's a plan on paper or what you've already planted. Look for any of these bad combinations. If you spot them, it's not too late to make changes for next season or even to transplant this season if plants are still small enough. Avoiding these bad companion pairs is one of the fastest, easiest ways to dramatically improve your harvest with almost no extra work. You're just rearranging who lives next to whom. Which of these bad crop pairs surprised you the most? Have you lost plants to any of these combinations without realizing what went wrong? Maybe you've been making the beans and onions mistake for years and wondering why your beans never thrived. Or perhaps you discovered the hard way that potatoes and tomatoes together mean disease disaster. Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story could help another gardener avoid the same mistake. If you found this video helpful, if it's going to save your garden this season, hit that like button right now. It helps more gardeners discover these crucial warnings. And remember, subscribe to Planify Daily and turn on notifications because we post daily videos packed with practical gardening tips, warnings, and solutions to help you grow the best garden possible. We cover everything from what to plant together and what to keep apart, to pest solutions, soil health, watering strategies, and so much more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next Planify Daily video. Happy gardening and keep those bad companions separated.